kick it off. Hello and welcome, my friends. If I hit all the right buttons, we are live on YouTube once again for our Friday Talk Power BI. But my friends, this one is special. This one is unlike anything else because we got Kirill Burian in the house. Hey, Kirill, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning, Avi. Good morning, guys and girls.
All right, so hey, Kirill is awesome. He's gonna be like dropping some knowledge on us, and the topic today is how to kind of guide your client through deployment options. Now, if you're sitting inside a company, you're like, hey, I'm not a consultant, I don't have a client. Well, your company is your client, right? So you're always counseling them, so you will get some benefit out of it too. But Kirill does full time. Well, he worked at Bonneville Power Administration, kind of led the Power BI charge inside there. And now he's out there helping the world, my friends, helping the world. And you can get some help from him too. His bio, his LinkedIn, his company is in the description of the video. So click there, connect with him. So yeah, he's gonna share all of his experience. So hey, before we get started with Kirill, I do love saying hi to everybody who's on. And let's see. So we have our friends on the phone. Of course, our one and only, our chat moderator is Steve Ross, also a member of our Six Figures program, has been in the Learn Power BI program for a long time. Steve, good to have you here, my friend.
Hey, Avi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right.
I'm looking forward to the call.
Absolutely. Kirill is going to blow it up. And of course, we have other friends from our Learn Power BI family on the phone. We have Mahendra, we have Lindsay, we have Heather. I'm going to say Kirill, but Kirill is a special guest. And we have Geert Larson. All right. Who is up on YouTube? Type in something. Let me know where you were watching us from. And we have Mikola, newcomer here. Awesome. Welcome. Welcome to the Talk Power BI family. Mark Stewart is here. John Milstead says hello to Mikola. And all right, great. Terry is from Windy, UK. I don't know if it's like Windy's name of the place or it's just windy in the United Kingdom right now. I don't know. Guys from Dallas. Tom says hi. Red Scooter 22. You whoop. Mikola is dialing in, watching us from Toronto. John says hello from Idaho. Kelly says hello from San Diego. And this is Yeti. Awesome. Yeti, always good to talk to you. Yeti's also in our Learn Power BI program. One of the amazing members. Kim Tornhead. I want to say that last name. From Sweden, we have Gururaj from Bangalore. Nice. Alison. Ronald from Kenya. Hello from Denver. Terry says just windy in UK. That's awesome. And Oluwasun from Nigeria. Now, what is interesting, my friends, is we have two members in our brand new Six Figures Power BI professional program who are based in UK. But that's one part where I'm excited about working with these people is that they all have the theme of helping others, and they all have kind of these big dreams. So it's Peter and Frank, and they're going to be setting up an awesome, kick-ass Power BI training business in UK. But their bigger goal is to also reach out to kind of the roots and help people in Nigeria as well. So hey, you will be hearing from these amazing folks as they go on this journey, and I'm just glad that I'm part of that in some small way. I can support them in that journey. All right, great. So we have some of the folks who joined, Minnesota, Soho, UK, Alan. All right, hi everybody. So we'll kick it off. So Kirill, I know I did a quick intro, but so again, guys, the topic today is how to, kind of figure out the Power BI deployment options. And Kirill is, he runs a Power BI consulting company. He's going to talk about it from that angle. But of course, if you're not a consultant, if you're inside a company, most of the advice would still apply to you very, very much. So Kirill, let's go back to you. And, I did a intro a little bit, but why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself. Let's start there.
Yeah, thank you, Avi. I'm so glad. I appreciate it. I'm just excited to be here on this call. I really appreciate you inviting me to talk about Power BI and kind of my journey with it and the different options that the users have with Power BI.
Yeah.
Avi and I go back a little bit. I know he worked for Microsoft. When Power BI kicked off about three and a half years ago now, right?
Well, I don't think about it that way. So for me, DAX was the start of Power BI, which was back in 2009, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
that's true. But we kind of go way back, and my company is Data Driven Solutions. We're primarily focused on data analytics, consulting, visualizations, and just kind of evangelizing the use of analytics in business. And my background kind of comes from the business analytics. I strongly believe that the data and processes are very interrelated and intertwined. You can't have one without the other. So that kind of helps us in our consulting as well. I mean, knowing data helps you really consult in any areas, any businesses, any verticals, any departments for that matter. You don't need to be an expert in any particular field. But you need to understand how the data works. And if you have some basic business acumen, it really kind of helps you orientate yourself quickly in a new situation, a new business. So, we're a small company. We pride ourselves on being small and flexible and agile. I really love it. I enjoy owning my own business and, interacting with clients and solving problems. I'm a problem solver.
Oh, gosh, I'm so happy for you. So 2 questions. One is... Well, data-driven solutions, great, but so are you like tool agnostic? You're like, well, yeah, I mean, there's Power BI, great tool, there's Tableau, there's Click, all of that, or, well, yeah, what's your stance there?
We are tool agnostic, but we're not naive.
Love it.
And it's interesting because a lot of the bigger shops that kind of jumped on Tableau, for example, or Domo. I mean, there's different solutions out there. The funny thing is there is such thing as a time to market and change management in the larger organizations. So once they get used to something, it's very hard to go back. I mean, it's almost like pulling teeth. No matter what you say, no matter what you tell, like they're just there. But I mean, most of our experience is with Power BI. I think it's a wonderful tool. I think it has a lot of upside compared to the competition. It almost kind of came out of the left field. If you look at the Gartner report, right? Tableau was out there for a while, and then oh my gosh, Power BI just came out swinging. Again, if you have Tableau, if you have Domo, we will definitely work with you. It's just we say most of our experience is in Microsoft stack.
Great. So I'm going to say that again. Heck, I'm going to write it down, scribble it down. We're tool agnostic, but we're not naive.
Tool agnostic, vendor neutral.
So yeah, look out and gosh, Power BI has so many advantages and for me, of course, I don't want to get too much into it. I don't want to turn this into Power BI versus Tableau, but I always hear that I get Power BI versus Tableau and all of that, and I'm like, it's not even a choice, right? I mean, for me, you focus on how do you build your data model. So there are 2 separate questions. One is like how do I want to build and maintain and update my data model, and you choose a technology there, and then how do I choose a visualization tool, and you don't have to pick one. So I say, well, you can use Power BI for your data model because it's awesome. And then you can use any tool you want. You can have, and often in realistic scenarios, we do have, like Power BI reports connected to the same data model, like Excel reports, SSRS. And if there is a cluster of Tableau users, often there are in a large company, let them connect to the, Power BI data model, right? So kind of separate those 2. And another question about the kind of company you help with. So is it a specific size? What do you see? Is it like small, medium, large? What kind of companies, industries that you typically end up working with or like working with?
I would say, part of the owning your own business experience is you have to be ready to scale, right? And everybody starts kind of small, and then it kind of goes up from there. So I would say we are working with small to medium-sized businesses. We had one client that is 300 people. But it's funny because you see, like, you think that, like, okay, this business is a good sized business. They should have all their ducks in a row, and yet they don't. They have. I mean, like, okay, what are your data sources? Oh, we have Excel spreadsheets on Dropbox, and I'm like, okay, that's not what I expected, but hey, I knew how to deal with that.
Yeah, but it's odd because I was inside Microsoft, and everybody outside looking in would think like Microsoft would be like perfect. I mean, gosh, they make the tools. So Rob, Rob had this thing he used to say, was like, just because they make racing cars doesn't mean they know how to drive them. That kind of thing. So I know I was inside Microsoft, worked with the finance team, and man, it was. I wouldn't say I was going to say in shambles. No, I would say it was the same that I've now seen everywhere with clients. they were tackling the same universal challenges, the same need to, that they got to put together data from multiple places. They have an official system. They may have an official system. It could be Dropbox spreadsheets, could be their SQL Server, but it's never complete. So they're walking that last mile, kind of the hard way and all that stuff. So all of that was there. One of the things that I would share, which is in a way, I've always worked with small business. And here's why. So I've worked with like NASA, NBC, Universal, big names, da da da. But man, the folks that I was working with, they were always like a outfit inside that. They were like this finance team or this business group or somebody kind of huddled there and really scrambling, right? And like, oh my gosh, Avi, this is so painful. And and we see a ray of sunshine, a ray of light, and can you help guide us there? So yeah, it's that dynamic. Yeah, it was always, to me, it felt like that small team dynamic, and I loved it. I loved that.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're experiencing a lot of the consulting is a stop and go, right? You kind of want to minimize that if you're a business owner, because you want that steady stream of work coming your way. You don't want to say present something at the next iteration and wait a week or two before they respond, right? So you, like you said, you want to kind of get close and tight with the people that are you're deriving requirements from, and make sure you keep in constant contact. Like if you're developing, then okay, you check, give me the feedback, check feedback, and that's how we used to work as well.
Awesome, man. So, oh gosh, we could be talking here for hours because I feel like we have so much to talk. But let's get on topic. And hey, folks on the phone, I mean, if you hear something interesting and you're compelled to ask, by all means, go ahead and ask, and that's gonna drive the conversation. So that's okay. And folks on YouTube, we'll check in with you in a little bit and kind of keep an eye on things. And I'm gonna try my best to kind of keep some notes of the path that Kirill guides us through. So I'm gonna kind of start here, and folks, we might clean up the notes later or something, but because I do want this to be conversation. So Kirill, guide us through a journey, and if needed, sometimes I'll play the client, right? So talk to us. You're stepping the client. And in the end goal, you would have this Power BI deployment options all figured out. Like, oh yeah, I figured it out for you. Look, you do this, and this. But it's going to go through some steps. Just walk us through that. So take it away.
So I'll freely admit I don't have everything figured out. No one does. But I have my way, and I'd like to share with you folks. And I actually I would like this to be an interaction, and to see if you have found a better way, or maybe there's some nuance that we'd like to share. I think everybody would benefit from that, right? So just at a high level, right? Power BI still has largely three licensing options, right? Okay. One is free, the other one is a pro, and the third one is a premium. So in our client engagements, that is usually kind of like the first step. Oh, I've heard about Power BI. I would like to use Power BI. Where do I start, right? So besides the basic questions of how many users are you gonna have, and how would you like to share it? You always kind of have to come at it from a perspective. What is the end goal, right? What are you trying to achieve with it? And just kind of listen, right? Sometimes they say, oh, I'm a one-man company and it's just one for myself. Then you've just eliminated a whole slew of options and permutations on the licensing part, right? Then you kind of start asking the remaining questions. Okay, would you like any online experience, right, with your Power BI tool? So let's talk about kind of in that context, right? So everybody likes. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing, and I mentioned that in the email that sent out too. So for me, I'm like almost ballistic about the MVP, just getting started. So when people talk to me, I'm like, you can figure this out a year later, or you may not even need it. First, just evaluate Power BI. Just get started. Bring out your data gene people, right? Find those out. And give them Power BI desktop and just get them to build a prototype. Maybe you're gonna hate that tool. I know that's not gonna happen, but I say that to them, right? So hey, so if you hate that tool, why spend time figuring all this out? So for me, kind of that's the step one, and maybe you do that too, right? So it's almost like a step zero. So get started while you're figuring that out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question that needs to be asked before that, if any of the development in Power BI is anticipated to be done in-house or not, right? Because sometimes
Uh,
they just made a selection, and or they have the rest of the
yeah,
Microsoft stack, and they say, you know what, I'm sold on Power BI versus something else,
yeah,
but I don't have any resources. I want you two guys to do all the work. I just want to see the
yeah.
interact with the reports, right?
I do
So
want to talk more about that, but let's keep going. I'll come back to that one.
yeah, yeah, and so you kind of start with that. It's like, do you have
Right.
any development resources that analysts or whatnot? I would agree with you though that like I think the first thing you do anyway is
Yeah.
download the desktop, right, and play with it, see what the capabilities are,
Mhm.
educate
Mhm.
yourself a little bit more because a lot of times that first
Yeah.
engagement is really just educating the client how to use it, what is it for, what the measures are, what are all these
Yeah.
different
Got it.
tenants and domains and things like that? Do you have Office 365? So all those questions, and they have, but sometimes they have a lot of it, but
Yeah.
they still don't know what Power BI is or how to use it.
That's often true a lot. I mean, and folks are yeah, you're right. I mean, they do have a lot of questions. I mean,
Yeah.
they have a list of questions. Um, so I'll write educate. Go ahead. So yeah,
Yeah.
continue. Let's continue on the journey. So we got free pro premium, and you had some basic questions like how many users, how would you share it, what is the
Hmm.
end goal? I like that. Like where you headed. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's continue from there.
So as we all know, Power BI desktop. What I actually love about it, and again, nothing against Tableau, but people keep hounding me because I love reading these white papers, and Tableau often publishes really good white papers. So I'm educating myself, but
Dude, wait. You love reading white papers? What's wrong with you, mate? What's wrong with this guy? You know? Oh,
it comes
gosh.
with a hook.
Uh,
You get a Tableau call, every 2 weeks or so, and
wait. Okay. All right.
I keep saying,
That's awesome.
2 weeks is not enough to evaluate your tool. Give
Mm.
me like a year, or give it to me for free. Just limit my publishing options. Just like Power BI is like, oh my God, we can't do that. Sorry, we'll call you back. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
So the Power BI desktop free tool, I think is wonderful step by Microsoft on what they've done with democratizing the capabilities, right?
Yeah.
The more people know about the capabilities, the more they're likely to adopt it,
Yeah.
right? And the more it's likely to spread. I completely agree that they have to make some money with
Yeah.
something, and in the secure content sharing, a lot of people kind of overlook that, but you can still share content for free, right? It just won't be secure. Like
Yeah.
you can publish it online.
Yeah.
That's what I do with a lot of, I play basketball sometimes, and we like to get competitive and start tracking our wins and losses regardless of the team. So I plug it into Access, I hook up Power BI to it, and I publish it. So we're still on the free topic, right?
Nice.
I publish it to the service, and I just share the link with everybody on our roster, and
Mm-hmm.
then we have some friendly banter about it. But the point is, you can still publish it for free. It just
Yeah.
won't be secure. Anybody with the link can access your reports.
It's so I had never quite. I mean, I knew all the options, but I never quite thought about it that way. So I love that
Yeah.
angle. All right, keep going.
So the catch is in the free version, there's no secure sharing, right? So like I said, anyone with a link will be able to access once you publish to the web.
All right.
um, so a lot of times, you would start with that conversation if somebody's on a real budget and just say, I have, so many dollars. If you can build me a solution, I'll be the only one using it, and I don't want anything online.
Yeah.
Sure, you can get away with just having Power BI desktop, and if you want me to be a developer, you can share it with me on Google Drive or Dropbox or something like that, right?
Yep.
But here's where Avi is a strong advocate. It's like, hey, eventually you are going to mature, you are going to graduate. I mean, the whole purpose of improving the business is so you can gain insights and share it with people in your respective departments who are subject matter experts. Kind of democratize the data type of concept, right? So they can look at the data and really validate it because they are the SMEs.
Mm-hmm.
You can build high-level reports all day long, but people don't only just want to see the revenue and the expense. They want to dig into the insights. They want to dig into the dimensions. They want to understand,
Yeah.
the variations. They want to understand the trends,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you're just going to be out of your depth. So at some point, you will need to start sharing, and obviously, you will need to start secure sharing if
Wait, wait,
you're
wait.
serious.
Oh man, that was so I didn't see it that way. Man, it's
Okay.
lovely talking to somebody else about Power BI. Oh, so you're saying that man, it's and I'm still trying to process. So the way I saw it was that I have all this goodness and I want to share it with others. But what I
Hmm.
heard from you was that dude, one person, you only know so much, you can only do so much. I mean, you may be the smartest guy in a company, but guess what? So one of my favorite quotes is the smartest person in the room is now the room itself, right? You know, because we're all connected and if you all kind of band together. So you go to sharing not just because you want to share what you created and it's awesome, but so that others can step in and bring in their expertise and help the company go from just looking at the numbers to say to something actionable. Say, hey, yeah, this
Hmm.
is what's driving that. Why is this happening? What do we do next? Right. So you need more people for that. That is one reason for sharing.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
you
you
just blew
hit
my mind.
but you hit
Okay.
on something really really valuable here, Avi, because the word actionable is what separates analytics for the sake of
Yeah.
analytics, right, and analytics for the sake of change and getting better. um, we can analyze anything we want 10 times till Sunday, but what are you going to do with this information? So
Yeah.
I, I always encourage my customers to say, everything is very interesting when it comes to data,
Uh huh.
but is this actionable?
Yeah, so there's that phrase like an FYI report. Like, I mean, it's like awesome, but it looks great. But like everything is
Right.
just FYI. Like, well, sales were up. Okay, what
It's
do I
good to
do,
know.
right? Yeah, yeah. What
Yeah,
do I,
and
yeah? Oh gosh, yeah. All right, keep going.
okay, so anyway, so like you said, you can only pull that free version so far, and when you start hitting that necessity for secure sharing,
Yeah,
that's where you have to kind of step up. And to be honest with you, $10 a month isn't, even if it's just one user, right? I think in some of your prior videos you shared some other frugal ways to scale up, right? For example, if you're going to have 10 users and they're all kind of sitting in the same department, you don't need to do the 10 times 10, right? And you can just create one account for a department and have people share and collaborate within one account. It just depends on what you want them to do. What is
yeah.
your experience with that?
Well, I really think the right thing to do is just set up accounts. As you said, I mean, $10 per user per month. So, you know what? I know we are further down the path, but usually my experience is people start talking about dollars right away. So I
Yeah.
stop them and I say, hey, first use the tool. First, see if it's
Hmm.
valuable. And then I
Hmm.
really have them start using the tool. So I say, hey, so there's one which I would kind of mention here, which is like pro trial as well, right? So pro trial, free pro trial. So then I say, okay, now you got Power BI desktop going. Go to the trial. You're still not paying anything. Just see how that works. And
Hmm.
then I say, okay, what is working, what's not working, and I'm still going with them. Like, well, what about this? What about sharing? What about this? What about dashboard? And I'm still
Hmm.
working with them. And
Hmm.
when their trial runs out, and then I ask them, hey guys, what do you think? Do you think it's worth it for $10? And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer, right?
Right.
At that point, it's a no-brainer, right? So I like having that conversation at the very end of all of that rather than right at the beginning
Yeah.
because then they're like totally anxious. And when they see it, right, and like, oh my gosh, it shows up on my phone and tablet, and
Right.
and
Right.
I did this,
It's
and
hard
yeah,
to
we
give it
saw
up,
it.
right?
Yeah, so $10. So you can evaluate it. Just go with the trial, and
Yeah.
and at that point, and I know if you're asking that question right now and you haven't walked that path, you'll be still anxious about it. But allow yourself to walk through that journey, and it'll become apparent. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, man, $10 per
Okay.
user month for the power that this tool has is nothing. So I use. You might know, others might know. There's a tool called Calendly, which all it does is helps me book appointments.
Hmm.
Dude, that's $10 per month. So I'm like, I'm looking at Calendly, helps me book appointments. I'm looking like Power BI, $10 a month. I'm like,
Right.
come on,
Right.
come on, people, right? Now
Not
there
even
is some
close. Yeah.
stuff there. There is some stuff that I want to talk about, which we'll bring back. You can see I'm writing all these questions, but let's continue on this journey. So great. So sharing, man, you blew my mind. I never thought sharing as that stuff. So great. So now you're talking to them about sharing. You're talking pro dollars. Where does it go from here?
Yeah, and you have to kind of honor and you hit it right on the head. Everybody wants to start talking money, but there's no cost to free, right? So like you said, you can kind of lead them down the path, say, hey, here are all those benefits, and what usually people respond to very quickly is the mobile, right? We're living in a mobile world. Everyone has mobile devices, and they don't carry a laptop in their pockets, and sometimes they just want that immediate actionable insight or email or something popping up as a pop-up on their phone to act upon, right? Back to our actionable KPIs and measures and insights. And and so that leads me down to my next point is, you can start with Power BI account free for 60 days. I mean, 60 days is plenty enough. I mean, we use it for our company, I think, for 60 days plus. You did mention something about like if you were grandfathered into it, you have like a year, but I think those people are trailing off now that Power BI has been around. But anyway, so I think you would want that online experience, just from a standpoint. A lot of people travel, a lot of people need access at all times, and sharing desktop is a heavy tool. Like it occupies probably the most space on my computer if I go to my programs, right?
So of course the big challenge there is if your desktop, if you're staying with that, if you're going with like option A, let's call it Power BI desktop, you cannot separate model from the report.
Correct.
And again, when I say these words, I don't know, maybe there's a good analogy I'll think of one day, but your PBIX has the reports and the model, and it grows over time and gets unwieldy, and now it's like a 10 meg 50 meg more file, and it's just kind of clumsy. So online just lets you separate the model, so you can have this centralized version of truth, and you can have multiple reports. And of course that's when you also get choice and visualization tools. You can connect Excel tools, so there's a lot of power there. I have to admit, this part, like separate model from the reports, is often not apparent to the person unless they've experienced it.
Right.
So the people who get it right away is who they come to me and they say, Avi, man, I have this 50 meg file, and users are starting to complain that it takes too long to load and da-da-da. And then I say, oh, have you thought about this? Just publish it online, and then you have just a separate report, and or something like that. And then they get it. If they're starting out in Power BI and I start saying things like this, cannot separate model from reports, they so anyway, now, hey, I'll throw one other thing here. I know Kirill would get it. So the next step here is you separate model from the reports, and then in your model, you separate the data from the model definition. And when you do that, you're working on the model definition, and it's not, you can be working with like a 200 gigabyte data size. So that's the next step, friends, but we wouldn't go there yet. All right, cool. So we're talking about these options. So mobile, they love. Online is awesome.
And don't forget the dashboards. That's the online only feature.
Yes, I do want to talk to you about dashboards. I have mixed feelings about that.
I do too. There's certainly pros and cons to what.
Let's not dive in there.
BI calls dashboards, right?
I know. I that's another confusion. Often when I'm talking about this, I just call it Power BI dashboard. So I am a disciple of Stephen Few. So I try to use his definition. Anyway, let's not go into dashboard. We'll come back to that. So mobile, online, dashboards, and this weird thing which is really valuable, separate model from reports, but people don't always get it. Certainly if I'm talking like management types, I don't mention this. It's usually the
so let's put asterisk next to that, because I did want to go on a slight tangent, but we can come back to it. Okay. Model from report separation.
Awesome. Yeah. So we got that. So keep going. So now you have this discussion, and where does this usually lead? Where do you go from here?
So you kind of try to get them to start with pro account for 60 days, right? And like we talked about, you can certainly create one shared pro account and share them on team members, and they can still create their separate workspaces and add, but then over time you start adding more pro accounts. But then you kind of need to understand what their current environment is. Do they have Office 365? A lot of people kind of confuse that. is it part of my subscription? You know, do I have to pay for it? Well, you pay for subscription outside of Office 365, right? Unless you have Enterprise E5 subscription, which includes a Power BI Pro account. So you kind of don't want to double pay for that. So you may want to talk to your Office 365 administrator and see what type of Office 365 subscription you have. If you don't worry about it.
So quick question here.
Yeah.
I get, okay, got it. I think I got this funny. So for a smallish size company, let's say, and even if it's like a 300, 500 people, often they're only thinking about 30 people initially in the Pro, which might change in the future, but sometimes they're thinking about a small set. For that size, would you know that if somebody does want Office 365 and like Power BI, is it like if you do want Office 365 and Power BI, is it a brain dead decision like, yep, then get the E5 subscription, or not really? What's the
we haven't worked with, I mean, I just, one of the white papers, right? I was reading the Office 365 subscription includes a Power BI Pro account. I haven't researched if it's one account or more accounts. Generally, the enterprise subscription is something that they have to make a decision on outside of me and my services. Power BI, I just want to check that box. It's like, hey, by the way, if you have it, you already have a Power BI Pro account.
Nice. All right, great. Perfect.
Yes. So like we were saying, with business email, you can try Power BI Pro for free for 60 days. Then a lot of people don't realize it kind of comes with like Azure Active Directory, right? It's there for Power BI Pro account for free, unless you use some more advanced features. But so that's where I would say 90% of, if not 100% of our businesses lies. We haven't really work with premium type of, the premium subscription people, or companies, I should say. They have a really large and complex data needs that we certainly won't be able to handle from our staffing perspective. So
you would engage with them in a different way. So let's stay here for a little bit. So premium. So for one, I call myself the accidental entrepreneur. I never imagined I would be doing anything like this. I really thought that there were like different people. Like you had to be somebody else. Like, oh no, that's not me. That's somebody else. So one thing led to the other, and here I am starting my business. So I would always read about these people in Inc. magazine and and there was this word serial entrepreneur, and man, I was like always like, how do you guys do that? I mean, it's hard, man. It takes a lot out of you, right? But I can now see a glimpse. So I'm not a serial entrepreneur. I've started this one business, and I hope to kind of stay with this, right? But in a way, I am, because I love stepping into a new Power BI deployment. And man, that gives me such an incredible rush, right? It's just phenomenal to walk with them on this journey. And I often say to my students, so on a personal level, sometimes students join my course and they say things like, "Oh, Avi, I should have really started on Power BI a few years ago." And I'm like, dude, well, for one, you're always in the right place at the right time. So here you are, sitting on the launch pad, strapped inside a rocket ship, headed to moon, headed to the stars. Would you rather be anywhere else, right? So it's an awesome journey on a personal and like a company level as well. So I realized that that's what I love doing, and frankly, if somebody comes in like, "Hey, Avi, we've been using Power BI for a year, and now we're having, I don't know, some issues, like a workspace is too complicated," I would like just, I'll not be interested in that. So yeah, you're right. I don't end up having this conversation either, because for one, it doesn't apply in the startup mode, right? I mean, so you've heard me. I don't even talk about the dollars to begin with. Doesn't matter which size of company it is. I just say, hey, download Power BI Desktop, start using. Download Power BI Desktop, find your data people, right? Find your data people. Where are they at? And just have them start using and let them guide you. And these are not IT usually, right? So I definitely don't have the premium discussion. But sometimes it's it's there. If somebody really asks, you can tell them, right? You can let them know that, hey, it's an option, and right. So cool. Gosh, I had a thing about that.
once they understand, while you're thinking about it, I'll fill in the gap. Once they understand how the charges work, right? And there is a calculator out there. You can just go to powerbi.com, click on pricing dropdown, and figure it out for yourself. But usually it doesn't happen right away. I mean, you have to kind of walk before you crawl. Sometimes you're just in the market for a BI solution. Then you kind of stick with one. Then you say, okay, now I have 10 users. Oh my gosh, it's spreading like wildfire. 20 users. People are coming out of the woodwork, to get more and more users signed up. And that's where you kind of hit that point of, okay, maybe I should, maybe I should scale up and use that calculator to see, what happens to my charges.
So roughly, if I'm not mistaken, it's like $5,000 per month, and since it's $10 per month per user, roughly you're looking at about 500 users. So if it's some right, I mean, do I have that?
Something like that. I mean, you have to take into consideration. I mean, it'll walk you through it. They have a pretty good calculator, but sometimes when you have your data in one area, I can't remember the exact term, and you have your model in another area, and you have to interact and you have to cross some regions, then there's something called egress charges. But if you are located in the west region and that's where everything happens, it doesn't apply to you. It's just going to be $10 a month, and so you just have to be aware of that.
Got it. Okay, so that's the rough parameter. Let's talk about some of the other options that gosh, so what about on-prem? Has that come up? Do you even mention it if it doesn't come up?
Yeah, so on-prem, trying to remember. Okay, so on-prem
report server.
Correct, right. So if you if you purchase Power BI Premium P1 or higher, you're basically covered, right?
Or there's another back road into it, the SQL Server Enterprise license with software assurance.
So that first option, when you purchase the Power BI Premium for however many cores, you're also covered for Power BI Report Server for the same amount of cores. That's important. But you rightfully mentioned the other option is to have a SQL Server Enterprise Edition with software assurance agreement. Don't forget that. And you get minimum 4 cores, so no need to pay for a gateway or anything like that.
Quick question. So when you said you buy Premium and you get Power BI Report Server, is it either or can you do both?
So now you're hitting my I'm outside of my comfort zone.
I certainly don't know.
I think if you purchase a Premium, you do have an option to have a report server. But you're covered. You don't have to pay anything extra.
Got it. So hey, on YouTube and on the phone, I guess, if you guys know, like buying Premium, can you do both? I mean, I think that would be kind of nice, I guess, if you can do both. If you know for sure, let us know, and especially if you can point to some article out there. Don't like just spread rumors. Like I think it's okay. No. All right, cool. So is there any path here that we haven't touched on? So we talked about kind of pro trial, pro accounts, just starting with Power BI Desktop. I'm not seeing anything. Something else comes to mind?
I think that covers it from the licensing cost perspective. There's certainly permutations of how you want to share and where you want to store the model versus the reports. How do you want to collaborate on the model, and such. And again, I mean, you touched on it lightly, but what a lot of people often overlook is the security, considerations, and just the so I think from the security and risk perspective, right? Because you don't want to not have tracking mechanism for who made the last update. If something breaks, what do we do? Right? Can we roll back? So that is also playing into the cost considerations sometimes.
That's good. Yeah. Although I will say one of my pet peeves is sometimes people start with security and risk, and so they're thinking about a Power BI deployment and they want to figure everything out about how the security is going to. Hey, we're going to make sure the users can't do this, and I'm like, seriously, and frankly, so folks, I'm not a security expert. But I've been inside one of the largest IT companies in the world, and security is not doesn't always work the way you think it does, right? So you can have the best security systems in place, but you got to realize how business operates. So IT and business have such different perspectives. So IT person wants to lock everything down. It's like, yep, it's airtight now. I mean, and so in one company, one of the, maybe the last company that I worked at, they had this very rigid system of getting access to the finance data, and they would, you had to, every year you had to qualify, you had to attest, like, yep, I agree, and go through a test, and if you scored high enough marks in the quiz, only then you got access. But guess how it was working in practice? One person in the team did that, and then just downloaded the data and shared with the team. That's security for you. So IT, freaking open up your eyes, I mean, if you think you can lock down the system, it's silly. And if you think you're going to, kind of block that export to Excel and so forth, it's silly. You're going to cripple the company. Pushing Excel out would be one of the silliest decisions you make if you do that. I've heard companies try to do that, So one of my stories is where this person shared, like, oh, yeah, we were on Power BI, and, yeah, we got rid of everything, and there's no Excel. And I'm like, what? There's no Excel? And you're like, yeah, there's no Excel. So I asked 3 times, and then I said, like, come on, dude, like, really? Like, what if users want to do this? And then he kind of admitted that, well, they have Google Sheets. And I'm like, do you realize what you have done, right? You just swapped out Excel for shitty Excel. Those were my words there. So I don't mean, Google Sheets is awesome, but for an Excel user, it's just like, Excel with arms tied behind my back, that kind of thing. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So obviously, Avi's not passionate. Yeah, Avi's not passionate at all about the subject, as everybody can tell. When it comes to IT controlling and security. What I meant by security is more from a perspective, not like how you share the data, although that's important, but from a perspective of who has access to the master file, right? So it's more version control security.
And that stuff is important. Collaborate. I'll think more about the collaborate. So I do want to kind of spend a little bit more time here. Great. So let's check in on the phone. So Steve, did you see something interesting on the chat board about this discussion we've been having, or if
well, there were questions about the differences between the 3 versions of Power BI. Free. I think you covered that. Without even being aware of the questions.
That's great.
And then there's some. I think they're unrelated to what we're talking about, but things about refreshing, auto refresh.
I saw some of that. Great.
So
awesome. So Steve, if you had something in mind, or anybody on the phone, let's go to you guys first.
Well, I have a situation.
Okay.
That I'm faced with.
Yeah.
Or it's a potential situation. So I got involved in the and I'm putting quotes around this, the Power BI world, using the Excel version, with Power Pivot.
Absolutely.
And I do quite a bit there, although I do make Power BI models as well. Because people that I work with have Excel, and they see Excel and they like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to send them something, and they'll open it and they'll look at it and they're comfortable.
Yeah.
If I were to send them and believe me, we are at the lowest level here. We're not, we don't have a lot of sophisticated users, and we're relatively small at our property. So if I were to send them a Power BI model and tell them that they needed to download Power BI to look at it, they would, they really wouldn't like that, I think, for most of them. So that's kind of, sometimes I stay with Excel just because I know if it's going out of, if it's someone other than me, they're going to be comfortable with it. Great. So sort of how do you?
Great point. Yeah. So Kirill, if you engage with a team which is like really Excel heavy and maybe resistant to change, they're not kind of on the cutting edge, what what would be like? How would you talk to them?
Yeah, I mean, I start from what can we do on the process side first, right? So if it is an Excel shop and I just want to eliminate any possibility of relinquishing ownership, right? So because once you email it to somebody and you expect somebody to do something with it, then that becomes the process for version control, right? So if you're just emailing it out to share, okay, that's one thing. If that works for you, that's great. But if you plan to like actually collaborate, you gotta think about from the business process perspective, what is your version control? So some companies, obviously have shared folders, right? And depending on whether it's turned on by the administrator or not, they have
Yeah.
version control in there. Other companies have SharePoint, so in case somebody
Yeah.
did something to the Excel file that everybody else uses and consumes, at least you can roll back to the last working
Yeah.
version. Emailing has its place, but if you're like 1 2 3 people and it's easy to control the versions that way. But I try to use like with our current client, they have Dropbox and it works great for them, right? Dropbox has version control. That's how it's secured, and that's how you check in and check out, so you don't override each other and manage versions that way. That's my experience.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
So,
I,
man, that's certainly I hadn't thought about that. I liked how you kind of took a step back and said, "Hey, forget about the tool." So I often say that let's not lead with technology. And as
Mm-hmm.
much as I love Power BI, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not the magic one, and I agree. So I get excited and I get gung ho and like, let's just get started. Give me your data and all this stuff. So I'm like that, but generally I say don't lead with technology. Technology isn't kind of the answer. It's kind of what you do with it. So let's stay here a bit, and maybe kind of Steve can provide input too. So if you look at the process, what are we doing with these Excel files? So either you're kind of reporting, you're like, hey, FYI, this is what it is, right? And then if you just open it, it's like, cool, awesome, I got it, and of course they can then take some action. But if there is something else going on, then I think that needs a deeper look, right? So, Steve, I don't know, it may happen in your scenario, it may not, but one scenario could be, and that is often the case, and I know we'll go back to my favorite IT and business folks, and IT folks, I love you too, all right? So IT sends out a report, and it's like, hey, report, everybody, email, whatever. Hopefully not PDF. Maybe it could be PDF, but maybe an Excel file. Maybe it's a link to an Excel file, or maybe it's some other report, right? Let's stay with Excel since that's Steve's example. But then, what if half the population that gets it takes that Excel report and does things to it, right? So they do something. In that case, certainly some kind of intervention is needed, right? I mean, and again, let's not put technology, but it would help. Maybe that is collaboration in a way, right? I mean, they each maybe do their own thing. So you know what I'm talking about, right? I mean, every department gets it, and then they say, "Oh, I like seeing it this way," and I da da da. I need this piece of data. So it's not kind of collaboration, but they're doing something with it, and I think that definitely needs a discussion. So Steve, do you have that
yeah.
scenario?
Well, I think for the most part,
Hmm.
when I send something that say I'll call it Power Pivot as opposed to Excel because
Yeah.
they think it's Excel, but it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
They they um, they just look at it for the most part, and
Got it.
maybe there's a slicer or something in there. They can kind of look at it
Mm-hmm.
different, just filter it a little differently. But for the most part,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
no, they
Great.
don't really do much with it. Even if they did, it's going to stay there. It's not.
Yeah.
They're not then sending it on anywhere. Um,
Got it.
so
Yeah. So
yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
So I feel in your case this is good though, and again. I talk about often like I talk about like query editor is your kitchen in Power BI. That's where you should do your cleanup, but not always. And I'm okay. I mean, sometimes students are like, oh, Avi, I broke your rule, and I'm like, hey, I encourage you to, as long as you know what you're doing. Um, so it's okay to use it this
yeah.
way as long as I think we understand what's coming next. So
Well,
so
so in our case, it's this way or no way. I mean, this is how I
yeah.
get started.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
is just
but
a
let's
start.
extrapolate, and of course each person's journey is different. But if there are like 10 people who start here, the thing that they will run against is inevitably. I mean, I think this is one of them. The file kind of gets too large. I don't know, Steve. Maybe you've experienced it already, or you can kind of see it, or I don't know. Maybe it doesn't apply
Yeah,
in your case.
it's not real large. It's like
Okay.
what it's 7 megabytes, something like
Yeah,
that. I mean, it's
that's
not too
pretty
big,
small. Yeah.
but I haven't done anything really terribly
Yeah. Yeah, but I think
sophisticated. I
if
mean, it's a fairly small model, but it's just a way forward. It's and as
yep,
more and more people see,
absolutely.
I'm a firm believer. They once
Hmm.
they see it, they have a concrete idea what it is and the value to them, then they get a lot more interested.
Oh, absolutely, my friend.
Uh,
Show
and
rather than tell. I would do that any single day. But
and
yeah, so
that's
it's great kind of where you are. But I think yeah, the key thing that I would watch out for is the file keeps getting bigger. Bigger, and again, I mean, extrapolate it. I don't know, like months, years forward. If they love this stuff, and again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's possible that some companies would be resistant to this, so not everybody. But if things go well, if it's received well, and the company's open to kind of some change at least, then they will ask for more, and then you'll add more, add more, add more. I think that's the natural journey, and at some point you'll say, oh my gosh, the file is too big. So, and
I'm confident that if you show them, let me tell you, I see the stuff that they send me. I'm sort of part of a new company now, and I see some of
yeah,
these files that they send out that are just like mind-boggling that
yeah.
they would use such a thing. These spreadsheets that are just so inappropriate for that presentation.
Uh,
So,
yeah. Go ahead, Kirill.
so Steve, I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you guys have some kind of a shared drive situation or shared folder situation in the company?
Well, here's sort of our situation. For a long time, we were just a standalone racetrack without any kind of IT to speak of. I mean, it was every man for himself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were acquired by a big casino company that does have SharePoint.
Okay.
And so I think if you ask the right people some questions and things, I think I could get access to all that.
Right. But like as far as and I've been in all sorts of situations. I've been contracting forever. There's a difference between contracting and consulting, I think, but we'll get to that later. You kind of start. It's a maturity scale, right? Everybody starts with, okay, I need some sort of analytics, and I think the reason why Excel is so popular for analytics because Excel is also whether people realize it or not or like it or not, it's also a transactional system. You can actually enter data in there and read from that, right? Otherwise, you need to go to IT and get them to set up a database for you. And, Avi's going to get on a tangent right now again. But so if you have your Excel report or Power Pivot report, rather, as a standalone analytics solution, I think the next step to think about is, am I using the right vehicles for distributing that information? Because if you have some basic sharing capabilities like a shared drive inside the Windows, right?
Yeah.
What you can do is you can still have your developer version, in your private folder somewhere. But once you get to the next update, you can publish it to that shared location. If it's shared with the right people, then they can just go to it. And what you can do with your email, Steve, instead of overloading their emails and the email server in general with a 7 meg file, you could just have that file sit there. And what you do is you send them an update. Hey, I updated this file. Here's what I did. Here's the link.
Yeah.
So if half people click on that, great. The other half doesn't. It doesn't cost them anything.
Yeah. No, I think that's all great. I just haven't.
Yeah, that's new.
Haven't spent my energy in that area just yet. But I do like the idea. I've messed around a little bit with putting, just links on PowerBI.com just to, see how it works. Send a link in an email, and it's good. I didn't know how they'd feel about sort of being unsecured, so I didn't really distribute it that way. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I have like sent it to myself, just to see what it looks like.
Yeah, yeah, and certainly you said now you guys have access to, or you can get access to SharePoint. So yeah, I know.
And
So I know
SharePoint's
it's kind
even
of a
better.
recent
That's the next
change.
step of maturation. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I just need to do it.
Yeah, yeah. That's okay. It's okay to kind of take it a step at a time, and clearly you've made kind of progress, and you're
Mhm.
spearheading it inside a company which is a little bit old school, right? But yeah, that's all good. That's terrific. Thanks, Steve.
Great
Mhm.
question. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so on the phone, if you have anything, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, I want to be respectful of Kirill's time, and I don't see any kind of recent question. There's some phone numbers being exchanged on a YouTube chat. That's great, guys. I mean, hey, this is a community, so by all means, connect with each other. Of course, we really emphasize that in our student community as well. The latest thing we've done is for our brand new program, Six Figures Power BI Professional. We created a Slack channel. Now have been using both Facebook and an online discussion forum in the past. But what I saw was that it was bringing people together over there, but they were not connecting with each other. And I got that. I mean, the dynamics are kind of different on Facebook. So we're hoping Slack will change that. So within our group, people would easily be able to connect to each other. So
Here, Orlando.
definitely encourage that over there. Hi, do we have a question on the phone?
Okay,
Oh, wait, no, somebody just not on mute.
no, that's fine. So yeah, so the content and the topic, all those like XREF, the few.
Okay, I don't think they were talking to us. All right, so in the few minutes that we have, my friends, I mean, I made so many notes, and I'm very tempted to go back and dive in and all this stuff. But one thing I've realized is that the more I've gotten into technology, like from the outside, it seems like I'm as techie as it gets. But the more I get into it, the more I feel that tech is about people. And the first time it really hit me was when I plotted all of my students on a map, and man, I think I cried. Oh my gosh, I get emotional even now talking about it, because it's not just a data point. There's a real person, so that was really tangible. But then I started thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, any data set, and for some it might look even boring. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just the same numbers, dollars. Oh, what do I do? Crank out these reports all day. But there are always people involved, so I want to focus a little bit on that side of things. So Kirill, I want to hear a bit about your personal journey, and so we have this iceberg effect in our society, right? So you go on Facebook, and my god, everybody looks so darn happy. And then you say, what's wrong with me? So tell me a bit about maybe some of the struggles as just starting out launching a company, like real things outside is like, oh, when I'm finding clients. Or what I would be really more keen about is that internally, where you get these doubts that I'm not good enough. What am I doing? This is the biggest mistake of my life. And folks, I mean, the oddest thing is, I almost go through that list every day. So yeah. So it's one of those things which I think in a way is a little more important. So tell me, if you're willing to share just a little bit about that personal side of things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. You mentioned on this talk that it doesn't, sometimes it feels like it's not me, right? It's like that entrepreneur or eternal entrepreneur, that's not me. And some people are like, I swear, they're just born with it, right? And you meet them, like, oh my gosh, like this guy knows this, and he is just like, they have it all figured out, right?
Yeah.
What I want to say is it's a skill. It's a skill just like any other. Some people have predisposition to it. Some people can learn it. And it's sometimes you have to kind of go through some frustrations and transform. And it's not for everybody, right? It's like, I'm not saying that everybody by the age they retire become entrepreneurs. No, some people are kind of happy with their path, and but some people think there's something more out there. I think it sometimes you have it earlier, sometimes you have it later, but there's no wrong time or to start doing what you want to do. You just have to kind of get to that point. This is like, you know what, the alternative is not something that I want to continue to do.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
And so anyway, that's been kind of my understanding, and I'm still learning too, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, I've got my own business, I'm super successful. It's nothing like that at all.
It's a journey. Yeah.
I think it has to come from within. I mean, I can't recommend this book enough to start with why, right?
Yes.
Understand why you're doing it. Like it has to come from within. What is your higher purpose? Forget the money.
Yes.
Forget all that stuff. I mean, that comes as long as why you're doing certain things. If you're clear on that, and there is a process to get there, then how you do it and what comes out of it at the end becomes kind of the manifestation of that why, right? But you have to find your why.
That is beautiful.
I don't know. You have anything else to add?
Well, which reminded me of was one of my favorite quotes from Tony Robbins. So maybe someday I'll attend these events, but so far I've only watched his Netflix documentary. So if you have Netflix, I would highly recommend go watch that. And in that documentary, they ask him that, hey, how in the hell do you do these ultra high energy 5-day events? I mean, this guy like owns the stage. He gets there, and yeah, he's just spending so much energy. He's just alive. How can you sustain that for like 5 full days? And he has this very simple answer. He said it's easy if you're being pulled than pushed. So that's what I heard from Kirill. And right, so I mean, I'll admit, I mean, all that life in corporate America, I think I was pushing, not all the time, but at least 80% of the time. I was just pushing. I was doing it because I thought it needed to be done, not just because my boss said so. I mean, frankly, once you rise up a bit, that reason isn't there. But because I felt like that, I need to do that to like look better against my peers and get a better rating and get that award maybe and get that promotion and all these stuff and so forth, right? But if you set that aside and be pulled, it's so much easier. So as you said, I couldn't agree more. This path, entrepreneur or 9 to 5, oddly, it's not that it's not that one is better than the other. It's a choice. But what I do feel is that it gives you more room to become that, kind of pulled in a direction. It's just a little more possible.
And the other side of it, for me personally, again, it's more freedom of decision making, right? Because when you work in a department in a company, there's certain things that are decided for you, like the software that you use, right? The hours that you work, whether you get to travel or not, and things like that. I mean, the flip side is you don't have to deal with a lot of overhead, right? As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you kind of have to figure out the things that need to be done, like the billing, the marketing, the sales, the operations, the project management, all that stuff. But like to me, it was like I've spent quite a bit of time in that to say, I know there's, making my own decisions will give me that ultimate freedom. And that's what I enjoy right now. It's not easy. It's not for everyone, but it's very empowering.
That's great. All right, friends. Hey, we're at the 10 o'clock mark. Kirill, I want to thank you. If you like, you can hang on. Up to you.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for your time, folks. Hopefully you enjoyed. I know I got a lot out of it. I'm gonna go back and review my notes. I think one of my favorite ones was the new way to look at why we are sharing, and yeah, that I'm gonna keep that one with me. Kirill, thanks so much, my friend.
Thank you, Avi.
Right,
have a good one. Bye.
Whew. Oh my God, that was pretty awesome, folks. So hey, we did promise we're gonna hang around and take all of your questions. So Power BI questions, it doesn't have to be. So all is fair game at this point. You can, of course, if you have any thoughts, comments, or questions about what we discussed, the deployment options, the stuff that Kirill discussed in the later part of the call, was just this journey of becoming, kind of taking control of your life. Let's call it that way. It doesn't have to be a consultant. That's not everybody's path, but just taking control of your life. Let's put it that way. That is one of my favorite topics too. And if you have any Power BI questions, so yeah, anything is fair game now. Let's start with our friends on the phone from the Learn Power BI family. So we have Darren, Geert, Heather, Kirill's still on. That's awesome. Lindsay, Mahindra, Paul, and Steve. So do you guys have any Power BI question for me?
Hey, Avi, it's Steve. I have there's a question that Julian posted that I'm also interested in the response. It's
All right.
pretty short, but it's just, I guess with publish to the web from the desktop, free
Yeah.
desktop, does the URL change each time you republish? So I guess if someone had the link
Yeah.
and the thing was updated, would they always have the link, or would you have to send them a new link? I guess.
Boy, yeah. I mean, I'm tempted to say it doesn't because yeah, you're able to embed those reports in other pages, and if the
Okay.
link changed, so yeah, I would say
Yeah.
it doesn't. Yeah, the link doesn't change. You publish to
Yeah.
web. Now, of course, once you've published to web, like if you go back and somehow walk through the steps again, publish to web. I don't know if even it will let you do that. It might change that, but of course, you don't need to do that. Like once you publish to web, all you do is just refresh the report and it's all set. So yeah, the link shouldn't change.
Okay, so you don't republish, you just refresh.
Yep, you refresh the data model that refreshes
Yeah.
the report, and that's it, right? So yep, yeah,
All right.
that's all you got to
Very
do.
good.
All
Okay.
right, so that was Julian, right? So okay, Excel. So we'll do. Got it. So Q&A. Okay, so I am not hearing anything, any questions on the phone. So let's check in with our YouTube folks. So Steve, thanks for queuing that question up. So folks, if you have any questions, and if you stay quiet, then I warn you that I go into story mode, and I have only so many stories. So help me out. Yeah, you might have to listen to the same story again. And I'm pretty tempted to tell my start with a why story right now, which you might have heard before, but it's a good one. It's a good one. All right, so we'll wait for your questions, and if you don't hear, we'll also open up the phone lines for you guys if that works. So start with a why. Kirill mentioned that, so now that's one of my favorite TED Talks. TED Talks have, by the way, shaped my life in in many ways. You know, they have helped me through a lot of tough spots. But this one, dang it, it didn't help me. It let me down. And oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of this person. I know I have read the book, so there's a book as well. Simon Sinek, of course. So Simon Sinek. Let's try that. So 10:07. We're talking about start with the why. So Simon Sinek, there's a TED Talk out there. I highly recommend watching the TED Talk. That one is easy. You can read the book as well. But Simon let me down. He let me down, my friend. So this one comes with a warning. You know that the warning on like cigarette, there's a label on there. This comes with a warning that, yep, you can be disappointed. So I left my job at Microsoft, and I was very clear why I was doing it. I wanted to help others. Oh my God, that's such an awesome thing, right? I mean, no better feeling in the world. But that led to me facing pretty severe depression. Let's not. I was messed up. I was so messed up that I would write blog posts where others would tell me that, Avi, man, you need to get some professional help. And of course, I would respond, yeah, I have an awesome therapist. She's helping me through this. So, and I say, if your job sucks and you're not happy, you know exactly what to do. But if you're doing your dream job and you're depressed, where do you go from there? So I really felt stuck, and that's why I felt Simon Sinek had let me down. I'm like, Simon, my friend, what did I do wrong? I listened to your advice. I did start with the why, help others, and I'm helping others. I'm going to all these companies and doing this consulting and doing this training, but I'm a mess. What I realized was what Simon forgot to tell me. Oh, Simon. No, it's okay. It's not his fault. That sometimes, for some of us, we need to ask the why a few times. maybe 2 times, maybe 3 times. This is actually the idea I got from a Six Sigma exercise, which is called 5 Whys. By the way, hey, interesting fact, I'm a Six Sigma green belt. Anyway, random stuff. Six Sigma green belt. So 5 Whys, and the goal is if there's a problem that happened, like say something there was an accident in the factory floor. Let's just go with that. You would say, why did it happen? But then you keep asking, like, oh, well, because the person forgot to flip the switch. Well, why did they forget? Like, oh, because they have too much on their plate. Well, why do they have too much on their plate? You see where I'm going, right? And the 5 is just a guideline. There's no rule that, oh, if you ask it 5 times, then you get the answer. Sometimes you get the answer in 2 Whys, in my case. Sometimes you may need 7 Whys. I don't know, right? So keep digging. And for me, 2 was enough. So I asked the next level of why. Why do I want to help others? And I remember to this day, I'm going to get emotional, exactly where I was. I was messed up, so this was my state of mind, and it struck me like a bolt of lightning. And it felt like all the pieces which are swirling around my head, they just fit together. And everything made sense. I can't forget that feeling, that moment. I was driving over to Oregon, actually, to meet one of my other friends. We may have him on the show as well one day. And I realized that I wanted to help others because for me, I wanted to be connected. I wanted to be connected. And that's why I was messed up, because I was helping others, but the mode in which I was helping them, there was not much of connection. It was all hit and run. So I would consulting, I was like, boom, man, I would drop in there and 3 intense days, and we would bond over 3 days because, man, we were there like locked in conference rooms all day, right? So I went to all these amazing places like NASA, NBC, Universal, and yeah, I had a great time. 3 days would build something awesome, and of course, so it felt great, but then I was gone, right? Then I wouldn't really connect with them again. I would do like a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day training, and then I was gone. So a lot of these hit and run, there was no connection. And that's when I started my Learn Power BI program. And if anybody who's in there, that's like almost the starting point of that. We have our community there. Of course, I've tried to build the community around the YouTube as well, and everything since then that I've done, the connected part, the connection part, is the starting point. And I'm doing well now. Let's just say that I'm in a good place. All right, my friends. So let's open up the phone lines. How about that? We had a question in the chat window. So yeah, folks, if I'm not always good at the chat window, Lindsay, you're still on. Go ahead and let's see. Can you unmute yourself? That's a good question. Get the microphone? Maybe not. So let's see if you can answer Lindsay's question. Oh, cannot unmute. Why is that? It does say self-muted. Oh, don't have a microphone. Okay, yeah, that would that would do it. Okay, so let's go. So Lindsay is asking. I'm gonna reframe the question. Where to jam? Power BI, SQL, elsewhere. So now that you have the strength of Power BI, what do? Do you eliminate all the stuff that you were doing in kind of SQL views and data sets and leave everything in Power BI? Well, that's a good question. That's a great question. Let's see if we can sort it out. So Lindsay, if I may ask, are you in kind of the IT side of things or business side of things? Like, do you have control over the SQL instance? Let's just go with that. And instead of SQL, it can be anything else, my friend. So if you're listening on YouTube and like, I don't use SQL, like whatever your database backend is, do you have control over making changes there, like changing, I don't know, the structure of the data, the name of the fields, and things like that? So she does have control. So yes, she does have control. So let's simplify the scenario for one. That what if she was more on the business side and no or little control or influence? So even when I was on the business side, I could request my SQL team to create a view. So I could do that, but it would take time, and they'd have to prioritize and all that sort of stuff. So in this case, I would heavily favor Power BI, heavily, near 100%, because it gave me total control. I didn't have to wait for others. I could just do it myself, right? So I could do it there. Now, of course, there were some exceptions, and we'll come back to that. If you're on the IT side, let's go over the exceptions here, and I think that would lead us to the IT thing. But in some cases, this wouldn't work. This wouldn't work because, well, for some scenarios where, frankly, it was too kind of hard to do it in Power BI. A lot of times you can solve it, but it comes with a cost, right? So that's what Power BI modeling is about. Power BI modeling is about two things. One, the assumptions you go with. Every single Power BI model is built on a set of assumptions. And as you do this more and more, you get really smart about actually recognizing them. When I was starting out, I'll admit, frankly, until I started teaching this stuff, I didn't realize that that's what was going on. But now I know and now I'm aware. So now when I'm building a model, I document my assumptions. And I say, okay, this is an assumption. If this assumption breaks, then my model is going to need to change. So we're slightly off topic here, but this is worthwhile. So one of our students, Anthony, I was talking to, and he said, hey, man, my model keeps breaking. And so he wasn't feeling very good about it. But when I asked him more, I realized what was happening was that his assumptions were kind of changing. So if you build a model with one set of assumptions and then assumption isn't true anymore, which happens all the time in business. So it's not really your fault. I mean, obviously you can do some things to account for that. So anyway, so coming back here, so something is too hard, complex, and it's a trade-off. So I'm like, yeah, I can do this in Power BI, but it's going to be this cost in terms of not just time and money if you're paying somebody, right? Time is also money. And not just in terms of that, but there is a lifetime cost of adding complexity in the model. Once you introduce that complexity, you would have to deal with it, step around it throughout the life of the model. All right, so wow, we can do it this way. We can have the slicer and we can make it work, but we'll introduce a complexity that either you or whoever takes on that model authoring will have to deal with. So you have to watch for that. Oh gosh, I had a thought here which just went away. Cool. So let's go with that. So it's too hard or complex, or sometimes it's too slow. The query editor, especially the query editor. It's usually when you're thinking about should I do it in SQL and should I do it here, I would assume. So oh boy, I didn't realize. Should have called out my assumption. Let's go with that assumption and we'll see if that assumption is not right, and then you can guide me. So for the assumption is we are mostly talking about what I call the kitchen stuff. So the query editor is the kitchen of Power BI. So this is what I call kind of clean shape transform. Yes. There's another word for that too. Same thing. Kitchen-y stuff, right? That's the best word. Extract, transform, load. So we're mostly talking about that. We're not, right now at least, talking about math. Woohoo! That's a big assumption because we may be talking about math. We'll come back to that. So for now, we're having this discussion. We're not talking about math. We're not talking about calculations, measures. We are talking about this kitchen-y stuff, all right? Kitchen-y stuff. All right. So if you're talking about that, IT or business, we started there. She does have control, but we are going here, so no or little control. And then, so sometimes it's too hard or complex, and I'm like, hey, this is going to be so easy in the SQL editor. Fair. It's fair. And again, when do you cross that line? That's up to you. Sometimes it's too slow in the query editor. Now, usually when people tell me that, oh man, query editor takes forever, and I'm like, how long does it take to refresh? And they say, oh, it takes 10 minutes, or it takes 1 hour. And I'm like, why do you care? Just set it up to automatic refresh, And we had a model on automatic refresh. It took more than an hour, sometimes 3 hours to refresh. We couldn't care less. We came in the morning and we had the latest data. Wouldn't have cared if it took 8 hours to refresh, right? So I pushed back on that a little bit, right? So one is auto refresh. So that path is there, but there is one aspect which is during modeling. And in some models, we did some stuff in the query editor, but then models are always alive, they're always evolving. Man, every time I got in there to add a step, it was, I mean, I could take a coffee break. And man, I like moving fast, really fast, because Power BI is fast. It lets you develop things in like light speed. But if I'm stuck there during modeling, doing the kitchen stuff, and it's just refreshing, and then there are other queries which depend on that. During model authoring, I would say, right? If it became too slow, that is a challenge as well. So yes, I can set it up automatic refresh, and that'll refresh 8 hours, and nobody cares. Like, so this is not like the data refresh. So that one is good, but if it's slow during model authoring, that's not affecting hundreds of my report users, but that is still affecting me. So we did say, this is too much. Now we're going to move this to SQL, right? So that we would go over there. All right. Now there's one other reason. So there's not just control. There is control, which is a factor of why I heavily favor Power BI. There's also a kind of simplicity. And let me tell you what I mean by that. So when I when I first started out using Power BI, I came to it from all these other tools. I knew SQL, I knew Excel, and I don't know, maybe SharePoint and that sort of stuff, right? So my kitchen stuff was all over the place, because that's the world that I was coming from. There was some stuff that maybe I was doing in SQL. There was some stuff which I was doing in Excel, maybe using formula, maybe even manual, right? And then I started doing some stuff in Power BI. And of course, Power BI has two layers. There's their query editor, and now query editor is the kitchen. So by default, that's where you should be doing all the clean shape transform. Now, a lot of those things are also possible to do it on the DAX side. You can create a calculated column instead of doing a custom column in query editor, right? And you would say, what's the difference? Obviously, it's the same. End result is the same. And it is, but it isn't, right? So imagine all of these different places that I'm now doing my kitchen stuff. There's the SQL, there's some Excel somewhere for different data sets, and then there is the Power BI query editor, then there's DAX. And this is the big question that you got to be ready for when you are a model author. Okay, you ready for this? Let's just build this out. Oops, did that work? Yes. These are the words I dreaded. How many words are there? The data does not look right. 6 words that I dreaded. I mean, I would go to a meeting. It's my report up there. Somebody else is presenting, and somebody else says, "That doesn't look right." I'm like, seriously? It just drove me nuts. And of course, now there were the old days where I didn't have Power BI, and this really made me anxious, made me sweat, because man, you could spend a lot of time in that spaghetti of things you built. Excel, it just kind of gets messy. As you keep, initial first report is very flexible, easy to do, awesome, right? But again, it kind of becomes, and again, I'm talking about the old Excel. The modern Excel has Power BI built in. So the old Excel, it became the spaghetti, death by a thousand cuts. So to kind of figure this out, that is this data right or not, was really hard, really hard. Now, it wasn't that hard in Power BI, but again, if I didn't have that discipline, then it was, so I had all of these places to look. Like, is it in the SQL? Is it in Excel? Is it in the query editor? Is it in the DAX? All of these stuff, right? So I wanted to simplify that. And so I focused on doing all of my kitchen stuff in the query editor. So now, often when I'm looking at a model and somebody asks me a problem, I'm thinking of two main paths. that either it's in my measure or calculation. Frankly, those are the two big engines anyway, right? There's a DAX engine, calculation measures, and there's a query editor, M and all that, right? So now pretty much I'm only thinking between these two. So imagine all of my options have collapsed into these two. So I say, is this on the measure side? Is there something going on in the measure? Or is it in the data itself? Like if the data itself, like the rows are missing, there are blanks or something else, the number is inaccurate, your measures can't do squat, right? I mean, measure is going to just spit out the number and it's going to be wrong, right? So, but maybe the data is right and maybe the measure is off, right? So that's a binary decision right there. And I figure that out and I'm like, oh, this is measures. I know where to look. Oh, this is data. I know exactly where to look because I'll do all my kitchen stuff in the Power BI query editor. So I just have one place to go instead of many. So, so that's the reason I favor this. But again, for these exceptions, you can go back to that. But for a second, frankly, I've never done this before. But let me think about it from the IT perspective. I think I know the answer. So the IT perspective. So I don't know if you are in IT. Okay, got it. Oops. Thank you, folks. So, cool. Yeah, the notes are going to be available later. Yeah, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen here. Okay, cool. So, yeah, but well, yeah, I'm a compulsive note taker. Even when others are talking, I start taking notes. Sometimes if it's offensive, I realize that. I apologize. But yeah, nothing different than what I said. So cool. But let's look at it from the IT perspective, and how should IT think about it? Let's back it up. Let's back it up a bit, which is let's say, um, oh gosh, IT. How does IT think about it? So I'm going to start with like a really bad example, and I'm not saying IT is like that, but it can be, and let's acknowledge that. So I think this is a real example. I walked into, I think it was a client. It wasn't inside Microsoft. And I looked at the report. I was talking to an IT person, and this report had like, I don't know, like 200 columns. And it was crazy. And I said, hey, why did you build this report? And he said, I wanted them to have everything. Everything, I can spell it, everything. Now, the thing is that I don't know what the person's intent was. Maybe the intent was helpful. So like, hey, I want them to be taken care of. I don't want them to like run around and like, oh, this data isn't there. I just want to give them everything. So it's 200 columns. I don't know if that needed to be that big and bold. Let's rein that back a bit. So maybe they had a positive thing, or maybe it wasn't positive. Maybe it was like, oh my gosh, these business users are like constantly, nah, give me this, give me that, give me this, give me that. You know what? I'll just do this and just go away. I want you to go away. Now again, I'm just kind of hamming it up, but or maybe it was somewhere on that spectrum, but it doesn't work, does it? Because they have everything and they have nothing. Right? They have everything and they have nothing. That 200 column report with, I don't know, 1 million rows of data, it's not usable to anybody. What are they going to do? Doesn't matter what your BI system is, they're going to hit the export to Excel button. Usually, often the most used button in a multi-million-dollar reporting system. And hey, you can disguise it by calling it export to CSV. We know where those CSV files end up, right? So it's the same thing. So yeah, it's giving them everything and nothing. Sigh. But why does IT do that? Because IT is often overwhelmed by this death by 1,000 cuts, their version of that. So they get so many requests from business that it's overwhelming. And what's the most frustrating part? That you get 100 requests, you build, let's say, 100 reports, you don't even know if 5 of them are being used. It's a constant frustration for IT. It's like, dude, I did all this work. So IT is saying, dude, I do all this work and you're not using it, So, sorry, right? So the way I would approach it from IT is that I let the kind of business users uh, uh, let's just say, I think I had a better catchphrase, but let's just say instead of trying to do everything with business users, I just try to support the winners. So um, if you see a business, let the business users do this kind of stuff, right? And let them come to you for exceptions, and you only implement that. So that's what I would do from IT side. Now, of course, Lindsay might be in a unique role because I feel like she's more on the business side, or at least focused on business reporting, but she does have control over SQL. Then I'll say I would act like the business user. I would heavily favor Power BI, but when there are exceptions, then it's good that you don't have to go to anybody. All right, that was well. Hopefully that helped, and I have my notes as well. Awesome. All right. All right. Let's see. So, all right, the Lakeshore Lookout has a question which Christopher Hastings is typing something. Well, I'll read out the question. I have a data in two tables that are in direct query. I need to take a column from each table and match up the columns and sort for near misses so that I can go in and fix the data in one. And Christopher, near misses. So Lakeshore Lookout, I'm not sure how complex is the data set. If you're able to provide like a dummy data set for us, we can have you call in and share your screen and we can work through that. Short of that, what I usually say is, what is the time right now? 10:30, and we have Lakeshore Lookout near misses. Oh, yeah, let's go with that. Is I always say human learning before machine learning. Oops. That's actually not always true, but if you start using AI, AI can kind of do it for you. But do you have like how would you define near miss? And what kind of data is it? Like aviation, like planes coming too close, and then maybe that one is simple. Like if you have like the distance, and you can say, hey, if the planes came closer than kind of 1 mile, then it's a near miss. Or maybe it's based on speed and distance, right? So it is speed and distance. So it's like if you're moving at 100 miles an hour, then you need to be at least 1 mile away from each plane, right? So maybe you have something like that. So if I'm moving at 900 miles an hour, then I need to be 9 miles away from each plane. I don't know, right? So you define it, and then you can just code that into Power BI. So machine in this case is Power BI. So yeah, so tell me a little bit more, or check out the video that Christopher posted. All right, so we have thinned out the folks on the phone. So I'm not really sure. Let's do the dial in for the Talk Power BI. So my friends, if you have joined the Talk Power BI club by going on talkpowerbi.com, I'll post that in here. So talkpowerbi.com, you get access to the files. You get access to the notes, and this has been a little bit on an honor system, but I'm gonna post a link here. I just request that you join the Talk Power BI club. That way we know, we get an indication of hey, who's kind of in and so forth. All right, so let's try the Zoom call, and folks on the phone. I realized we're trying to think of ideas on this. I know this. We go into this weird territory with the folks on who dial in from the phone. My class members, you're not going to be able to hear any callers, but we'll see. All right, so I'm gonna copy that, and didn't work. Cool. Just give me 1 second, and I will get that going. Oh, perfect. Is it me? All right. We got it now. I think. Say connecting. Join. So the phone lines are on, my friend. Let's see who wants to talk to me. And don't go make me go into story mode again. I think I'm out of stories now. Gosh, that was a powerful discussion. Actually, I do have a story. So we're gonna wait for callers. And is it possible to display the name of a private bookmark on a report? Ah, so Geert, you dropped off the phone. What happened, my friend? We could have talked about it. Let's take that question. So good. Pause the story mode for now. We'll take Geert's question. 35. Geert Larson, my friends, a member in our Learn Power BI family. Is it possible to display the name of a private bookmark on a report? So bookmarks are great. They can be used beautifully for storytelling. Let me see if I can understand the scenario. Private, I'm not sure. I mean, there's like bookmarks, I understand. Oh gosh, I see what you're saying. I know what you're talking about. So this is a new feature, which is no, I don't want YouTube. I want. Hey, by the way, folks, I wanted to thank you. The last Talk Power BI, we had crossed 19,000 subscribers. Thanks for your support. And I didn't keep an eye on this. We also crossed 1 million views. So, well, thank you. But that's not what I wanted to show. I wanted to show powerbi.com and go private. So private bookmarks is a new feature, right? Yeah. Very interesting scenario. Personal. Yep. I think I got it. Hey, so sometimes it might feel that it's hard to kind of keep up with all these new features. But what I will say is if you're starting out, don't worry about that at all. The core is what matters. And the good part is that doesn't change that much. The core concepts of building Power BI model is still the same. And for that, just a good place to start is my tutorial. Of course, if you want to continue that journey, we have a complete course for you. Don't feel like you need to stay on top of every single small change that happens in the Power BI. All right, so let's see if I'm looking at a report. And I think it's actually inside a report. Let's go to something exciting, shall we? What's my feedback? I'm feeling like that the answer is gonna be no, but let's see. Andrew Ma or Annalie Zubar. I don't know how he came up with these names. So if Andrew Ma and it comes in there and it says, I always want to add that and capture this current state, and I'm going to say add personal bookmark, and this I say is Andrew's report. wow, you can make this default view. I'll admit I hadn't even played with this, so this is really cool. So this is giving more power to the for the self-service for the end user. Mm, so you can save it. Yeah, I don't I don't think I don't think how is that going to be possible? I'm tempted to say that
Avi,
that's yeah.
this is Heather.
Hey
I
Heather.
don't think there's a way to make the bookmark name appear in the report,
Yeah.
but you can pop all of the bookmarks out as a panel, just like the filter panel on the side, if you select
Uh
other bookmarks. And
yeah.
so there, if he's wanting them to be able to see it,
I see.
that would be the place to
Yeah.
go to be able to see your bookmarks as well as any bookmarks the report had.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So I think that this is like a technical challenge because there is the Power BI kind of model that you build using Power BI desktop. And this is the stuff that shows you whatever's inside the report. But the personal bookmarks are not created in there. The personal bookmarks are actually created in the Power BI service. So if you open the desktop file, PBIX, it's actually an XML file, and you can read everything in there, every single measure definition, whatever bookmarks you define in the model. So it's going to have all of that, but my understanding is that, and again, I could be wrong, is that the personal bookmarks get written kind of on top of that in the service. They do not get written over here, and the engine that's rendering the report showing that is this kind of engine, this thing. So I don't think that's going to be possible. I mean, you can submit that idea, but I don't think you should kind of wait for that. So what Heather suggested is kind of valid. Um,
Well, and I've never seen
yeah,
a way, even with ones that you've written into the model, because I use that, I've never
that's
seen a way
true.
to capture that name in my model.
Yes, but it's theoretically possible. I think that would be fair to ask the Power BI teams, like, hey,
Yeah.
give me a way to do this, and you'll say, oh, okay, here's you go. It's this weird function. I mean, like there is stuff like a username, right? So they could
Hmm.
theoretically write that, but I think the
Right.
personal one could be theoretically, I don't know, I don't want to say impossible because Power BI team does some amazing stuff, but hard because it's gonna have this bridge. So yeah, so no way to do that. While I have Heather on the phone, I feel like I had a bookmark question. So let's see if there was anything else that's popping up. Okay, I'll hold my bookmark question. Marcelo Rojas, let's see if that's a question. It looks like a question. It has a question mark at the end. Greetings from Chile. Hello, my friends. Hola. Well, actually, is it Spanish over there? I don't really know. Sigurd Larson, that was a good question. So we talked about that, and we're at the 10:42 mark, and we have Marcelo. I should have just pasted it. Okay, so let's see what Marcelo is asking about. In the ultimate table, you built the table in Query Editor. I saw another video where a calendar was built as table outside Query Editor. What is the difference? Outside Query Editor, can you tell me where? Was it DAX? Like it built inside DAX? Was it sourced from an Excel table, a SQL table? Actually, let's just go with all of that. Sourced from Excel, SQL, Azure, uh, others. So I have pretty much used all of these approaches when building calendar tables. The first one, maybe my very first one, was I built a calendar table in Excel, pulled that into Power BI, and then sometimes I build it in SQL. Maybe I've used the Azure approach, and this is my least favorite, even though it's tempting, and that's the risk, my friend. Sometimes what's tempting leads you down that wrong path. Doesn't that happen in life? You're staring at that cheesecake. You should not eat it. I'm just kidding. Forget that. So for example, in the early versions of PowerPivot, maybe they still do that. There is this tempting thing at the end. It says add column. I'll try to bring it up and do that. Okay, so here, Power Pivot. Let's just see, A B. Only if it's quick. Power Pivot. Oops, dang it. We got some music, my friends. Hey, Gear, what do you got playing over there? Dax at the table. Okay, got it. Okay, awesome, great. So, so you see this thing? Oh my God, this is the hand of the devil, my friend. It's so tempting. Add column, and you know what it does? If you do add column, you know what it does? I'll show you what it does. Oh my God, it wants you to add another column and another column and another column, and it never stops. It's like, it kind of sucks you in. Worst thing you can do with Power BI. Worst thing ever. Build your model like that, right? Because it's not how you build a model, my friend, right? You shouldn't do math over there. If you're doing stuff over there for like not math, it should probably be done in Query Editor. But, stuff happens. So the DAX thing, this here has this easy one. Where is it? Date table. Oh no, what is it? There's an option here to somebody help me out. There's an option to create a date table, isn't there? I'm pretty sure there is, even though I can't find it here. So I don't prefer that approach. Why? Because the kitchen is the query editor, and that's for a few reasons. It's got all the tools in the kitchen, and it's got the trash can, which is very important. If you don't know what I'm talking about, guys, sorry, I'll dive in later. And what else? There's another reason. There are a few reasons. Sorry, I'm late in the call. But yeah, so yeah, you should never do it in DAX. You should do it in the query editor, because that's the place to do this kind of stuff anyway. That's the place to kind of do all that clean shape transform, and in this case, kind of creating data. It's got a lot more tools, and I know. So DAX, this whole calculated column stuff. And by the way, can I get some help here? Can somebody tell me that? I know there's an option here somewhere to say, create a date table for me. Where is that? Help me out. Model new table. Model new table. Is it? Oh, is it in Power BI? Oh, I was maligning Power Pivot. No, it's all good. It's all good. A new table, and you say calendar. Yeah, right. So here's the thing. Let me show you the calendar table first of all, right? And I'll talk about it. Boils down to why is. So I think this calendar auto. Okay. I thought it was easier, but I guess it isn't. I don't know. So calendar auto, and you create index. I don't care about it. Nobody should do it. Please don't do it, guys. All right. And I don't want to come back later and say I told you so. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that to you. I just think it inside. Okay. So what does a kitchen look like, right? So imagine your kitchen in your own home. What does it got? Man, it's got like the knife set. It's got the blender. It's got the stove. It's got the oven. It's got the toaster oven. All of these appliances is rich with appliances. If I'm cooking, and I don't cook, but but you have all the tools. And look at this. Look at a kitchen. Oh my God, it's a thing of beauty. It's so beautiful. Look at all these tools. I'm so excited. Oh gosh, and that's just the home tab. There's transform, and there's add column, and there's view, which is not that helpful, and there's help, and I think there's more that pops up sometimes, depending on context. I think so. So it's got all these tools available at your fingertips. Now, I want you to imagine that you're trying to cook in your I don't know, your living room or bathroom or some odd place like that. And man, it doesn't have all the tools, and you're like trying to make it work, and it's hard. It's so hard. But right, so let's look at the calendar table over here. So besides the kitchen analogy, this thing is the right place to build it because the whole dynamic, so the Square editor is built for this, is that you can build things step by step, 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 and it is what I call self-documenting. And you can take it to another whole level by doing things like this. You saw what I did here? I added a marker. I did this. So you can do that. That's simple. You just rename it. And, instead of having added custom column 1, added custom column 2, added custom column 3, look what I did. I just, took the time just as I was building it. That's the best time to do it. If you think like, oh, once a year I'm going to go back to all my models and do this stuff. No. You do it just as you're building it. And it's so easy. You just add a step, just quickly rename it. That's it, right? So it becomes this self-documenting, and you can go step by step. You can understand it. If you can step in a month later, somebody else can understand it, right? So it's liberating, my friends. So anybody else can understand it. They can just go step by step, and of course there are comments here as well, and all of that stuff, right? So that's the awesomeness, the freaking awesomeness of Query Editor. That's why it's the kitchen. So you go step by step and you can understand it. And the best part, you can throw things away. That is a trash can. Now, I don't know if I have an example of that right here, but I'm just going to make one up. Let's see, for example, that in our data set, it came in as 2 columns. First name, right? And then there was another column, last name. And somehow, and again, it's a made-up example, we didn't need that. We didn't need these 2 columns. We only needed this. What we can do is create this column, and then we can delete this stuff. You can peel the potatoes and throw the peel away in the trash can in the kitchen. You cannot do that if you're trying to cook your potatoes in the living room. It doesn't have the trash can. You're going to have to pile them on the side somewhere. So I can come in here, I can delete it. And forget about columns, I can delete, oh wait, you can't see me. I'm doing air quotes. You can delete whole tables, whole complete tables. This table, I used it, threw that away in the trash can. I'm like, see ya, I don't need ya, right? So, yeah, and you delete tables essentially by unchecking the enable load. So you say, see ya, I don't need ya, right? So yeah, you can delete whole tables. So that's the trash cans. So that's the awesomeness, the sheer awesomeness of Query Editor compared to the DAX world, where if you do build the calendar auto, what are you going to do? You're going to add, now I need months, now I need this, now I need the fiscal year, now I need week, now I need the current month offset. I mean, have you checked out offsets in the query table? Go ahead, go give that a try in doing it in DAX. And the challenge becomes, and I often hear people saying when I show them Power BI, they're like, oh, I can do all of that in Excel. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, my friend. Go ahead. I've been there, done that. So in Excel, this is what things look like. And the DAX side, when you try to twist DAX's arm and try to do that kind of stuff, do the kitchen stuff in DAX, you end up with something like really complex formulas. So you have 2 choices. Imagine I have I have really complex calculation to make, which may be like current month offset, or I don't know, it's possible to do even something more complicated in your formula. Then either I write a single formula, which is really complicated, right? So that's what you would see in Excel. So this person, you would look at the formula and you would like, oh, if this is that, then do this and do that. And it's all one formula. So it's very compact, but it's extremely hard to understand. If you do not do that, then you're going to do step by step. But then because you don't have the trash can, so you're going to say, I'm going to say A1, I'm going to say A2, and I'm sure Excel users are kind of getting it. Like, this is the life. And you build a lot of stuff, like, and B2.1, like all these versions. And again, imagine you're trying to determine something really complicated, and you would say, well, I'll do the small condition here, and then you combine them. So in this formula, maybe the last formula is simple, but then it's dependent on all these other things. And guess what? You cannot delete them. There's no trash can. If you delete them, then this measure wouldn't work. You see how limiting this is, how binding this is? Why would you even want to do that, right? So come back to the kitchen analogy. Dude, that kind of stuff and any clean shape transform in general, just do it in the query editor. All right, so that's where I stand. So one of my mentors, James Whitaker, said that, Avi, your goal whenever you're speaking is to piss off at least one person out there. So I hope I've done that. Somebody out there saying, Avi, you're out of your mind. You can't believe. So anyway, that was it. All right, cool. So Marcelo, hopefully that made sense. Let's see if we have. Oh, we got Yeti on the phone. Yeti, hey, if you can unmute yourself, I'd love to check in with you, see how things are going. And okay, we'll wait. If that works, great. And did I? Awesome. So guys, I'm not getting any love on Zoom. I do love talking to you guys, and of course, it lets you do cool stuff like, oh gosh, okay, all right. So Yeti is just listening. That's cool. That's cool. I'll post the link again. Don't be shy. I want to talk to you. So yeah, dial in and you can talk to me about anything you want. Power BI if it's if it's Power BI, great. If not that, yeah. So we'll wait for that a little bit. I'll fill that in with some banter, and maybe we'll make that the last thing until one of you joins the call and has something to
Hey,
talk about. Yeah.
Avi, I'll just mention one point
Yeah.
about the calendar table being created in the query editor, which is very helpful to me, is that you just can use it in any model that you have. You just paste it in.
Yeah.
You don't have to create it. So it's
Yep.
very, very easy. I don't know what it would be like in DAX. I've never.
Yeah.
I don't know how portable it is in DAX.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that, because in here you're right. So you can take the query editor and have an Excel model query editor open, or another Power BI desktop model, and you can just copy paste. A DAX may not be transportable. Actually, now that I'm all gung ho about the calendar and the query editor, there is one challenge that I do face, which I think is possibly going to be solved by data flows. So what I end up doing is that I have my lovely calendar table and I copy paste this everywhere, but it's rare, but it happens. Sometimes I update the calendar table, and man, when I update it, I have to go back to each of my model if I care about them and update the calendar table. But I think that can be solved possibly by data flows. I still have to check that out. Yeah, so Steve, you might have encountered that too, right? I mean, if you
I don't. That is the ultimate calendar table, so you don't change it very often.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, the easiest way to change it, so if you do copy paste into another place, and then let's say you make an update in one place, and yeah, calendar table. What I've seen with clients that I worked with, there's more often than not, sooner or later they did have a specific thing for their own business. I remember one where they asked for like an academic calendar. I mean, they were not. It wasn't like a school or anything, but some of their clients were schools, so they wanted to line up the sales based on the academic calendar and see that, oh, do we get like an uptick in sales when school starts or something like that. Or when the trimester starts. So they added that. So, and of course, that's a flexibility of doing it here. You can kind of transform it just to fit your needs. All right, cool. All right, folks. So, hey, we don't have a caller online. would have liked that, but that's okay. That's cool. Got to hang out with my students and Kirill. Hopefully, you enjoyed the call. I will say goodbye. It's kind of hard to say goodbye, but yeah, I'll see you all next time. Take care. Bye, everyone.
Avi,
Hey, Heather.
did you come up with your question on bookmarks? Or you want to deal with that
Oh,
some other time?
yeah, yeah. Well, let me see if I can quickly ask that. So let me pull it up. And the last time I was doing it, oops, no, that's not it. I think it was. Well, let's see what I have here. By the way, folks, if if you if you want to dive into bookmarks, Heather spoke about that in one of the earlier Talk Power BI, and it, it, everybody loved it. Everybody just loved it. So yeah, so you can if you go to the channel page, there's kind of the history of all our Talk Power BI. We're actually getting close to our 50th, and we've been thinking about inside our team what to do for the 50th. I would love to do something special and interesting. I don't really know what, but you know what? I'll post the link to the bookmark one as well. So look at that, 40, 46. I'm getting close on the 50th. So this one, there we go. And okay, so I'll kick it off a little bit later. So you would have to, you can skip ahead or just listen through some of the stuff. So this is more on bookmarks. Okay, got it. So if I go to Bookmark Spain, oh man, I think it's. I feel like they fixed it or changed it. I have a feeling that earlier there was some problem where I couldn't tell which bookmark I was on. Does that ring a bell, Heather? Was that ever the case? It's funny how when they change the tool, you never know, like, was it always there or not?
Yeah, I've noticed recently I get an outline around the bookmark that I've selected, and I didn't
Yeah,
have that at one point.
exactly. Yeah.
It
So
was shaded, but it was a real fine shading, so if your
yep.
screen was a little off, you might not have noticed it.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find. Maybe they listened to me. Oh gosh, where I thought I voted on it as something. So by the way, folks, yeah, I mean that's one thing that I've appreciated about the Power BI team. They're very accessible. Mm,
Avi, can I comment on this?
yeah, go ahead.
This is
I feel like
um,
I voted on it,
I,
but anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I've just noticed that in the personal bookmark, you have
Mm-hmm.
an option to show the
Mm-hmm.
bookmarks, and in the bottom you will see the name of the bookmark.
So
That is, if you
so
where
if I
if you say show view, sorry, view is because mine is in
got
Danish.
it, Yep.
Then in the bottom, Andrew's report.
Nice. Yeah. Oh,
I
that's
had never
awesome.
seen that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so this is there in this mode as well in the desktop. So let's make sure. So this is the desktop now.
Yeah,
Oops. And in the when you go in the view mode, and you can even close the bookmarks pane. So I
yeah,
and step through that. It's almost like PowerPoint.
yeah,
And you can step through that, and yeah, at the bottom you have the name. So do give it a good name if you plan to
yeah.
use it this way. Uh, wow. So I'm really stunned because we were talking about how you can show them Power BI service, and I talked about this whole thing, and I said, oh, that's like hard or impossible. but here we have a perfectly valid way. I mean, so this works, right? So here, I mean, does this kind of solve your scenario? Is this good enough?
Yeah. Yes, it solves. Apart
Perfect.
from one thing, I have a lot of reset bookmarks that I don't want to show for the users, and I don't want them to browse through all those bookmarks. I would like to only show the personal bookmarks, but
Oh, so
I
wait,
think
so let me understand your scenario. So you as a model author, maybe you're defining bookmarks, but you don't really want to share them with others. They're for you, the model author. Is that right?
yeah, exactly. They are not to browse through. It's for instance reset
Yeah.
filters.
Let's do it, my friend. Let's order that up. How do we do it?
I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah. So let's say, um, what do we? How do we word it? Allow model authors to create secret bookmarks. I don't want to call it private bookmarks, but they already
Oh,
use it.
hidden or secret
Yeah,
bookmarks.
hidden. I like that. Hidden, because they do use that concept, like you can hide a sheet, right? So they have that
Yes.
idea, right? So hidden bookmarks not shown to end users.
Yeah.
Okay. Category. I think this is kind of desktop because they define that. Often as a model author, I like to create bookmarks for key scenarios. I might need them to debug or
Or reset
use,
filters.
yeah, recreate filters, or or if there are multiple authors working on the model, this can be kind of a collaboration tool. So you can say, hey, can you go look at this bookmark, and there's this going on,
Yeah.
can you fix that? Working on the model, this can be used for easily discussing, I will say, specific issues. It would be really useful. Sorry, guys, not very exciting, but it's those watching on YouTube. But yay, this is really cool. And again, I mean, that's one of the amazing things about Power BI. They do listen to this stuff, and they're not
Yeah.
gonna listen to everything because they get a lot of feedback. They haven't done everything that I asked them, but they're always kind of they're open to that. Really useful for authors to be able to define bookmarks and then mark them as hidden from end user. Good enough?
Hmm?
Good enough, right?
Looks fine to me. I'll go for it.
Okay. All right, my friends. Oh, so it's being processed. So I'll put the link here, but it may not show up right away. Yeah, so folks on YouTube, I'll put the link there as well. If you can vote on it, great. Otherwise, just check back in and so forth. So, that's good stuff. I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, I always say if you're starting out, don't worry about any of the stuff. Just focus on the basics. But sometimes you get like a small feature like this, and it's like Christmas. Like I swear, I feel like earlier you clicked on the bookmark and it just wouldn't kind of highlight it. So I was getting lost when I was making presentations. Like I would click on question, but then I couldn't say like, oh dang, which is the next one. But I'm pretty convinced that is like a new change, and that's awesome. So the small stuff like that sometimes makes a big difference. All right, folks, good discussion. See you next week. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.